So my talk is stop Rubocop fix-up commits like ever. I am Mike Milewski. You can find me on GitHub and all the other things as Ceramic. And sometimes I blog under the name Failure Driven.
Failure Driven!
Yeah, we got support there. That's great. So what is this talk that I'm talking about? I'm going to be talking about the most important work you as a developer can do, but we'll get to that right at the end. Most importantly, I'm going to use the Rubocop as an example. So you may be asking, what is Rubocop? Rubocop is a static code analyzer and formatter. There's a great talk by Nick Wolf, who has a feedback trilogy. I didn't know this. There's a trilogy of talks he did. One of his favorite gems is Rubocop. He talked about it then. David Carlin talked very recently about how to add your own cops. Those dates are when the videos were live. But yes, they are the place to go and find out more about Rubocop. But as a quick example, I have above a terminal window, and down the bottom, I have some badly formatted jwt.encode line 17, 18, 19. As you can see, the indentations all over the place. If I run Rubocop, boom, it tells me it's corrected 17 offenses, and you'll notice that that JWT encode is now neatly aligned. So I'll go back, unaligned, neatly aligned, unaligned, neatly aligned. That's one of the things Rubocop can do for you. And even though Rubocop has been around for a long time, and I've worked with people with Rubocop, I still spend countless hours, people lining up brackets. Rubocop can do that for you. That's a good thing of Rubocop. Another thing it can do for you is teach you how to code. Here we have an example, line 456. We have publish contents.map do content.story. Okay, I'm mapping over the contents and calling .story. I run Rubocop, and all of a sudden it says, hang on a second, you can just do that with a .map & story. That's cool. So I'm going to just go forwards and backwards. Rubocop can pick up little tidbits like that to say, why don't you do it this way? So that's kind of cool. They're two examples of what Rubocop can do. So why are fix-up commits bad? And maybe I should mention first what are fix-up commits, but we'll kind of hit that at some point here. They're slower feedback. So if you have to do whatever you're doing and then come back and make a fix-up commit, you're not getting the feedback quickly. They cost time and they reduce your learning, because often if you already committed some code and then Rubocop tells you something's wrong, you're not in the mode of learning. So let's have a look what that actually means. You write some code, right? We all write code. No, we write test-driven code. So every 10 seconds to 5 minutes, we may run a test. And when we're happy after a number of kind of pieces of code and tests we've written, we'll commit. Hopefully you're committing around, I don't know, every 30 minutes. And then maybe pushing about 3 times daily. And where do you push? You push to CI. And CI can run anywhere between 5 to 20 minutes. And what does that do? Well, it runs all the tests. And somewhere in CI is where often you'll get caught out and one of your brackets was in the wrong spot, or some other Rubocop rule did not work. So all of a sudden you have to start the whole process somewhat again, because you have to commit again, you have to push again, you have to have CI again. Come on, this can't be that bad, can it? Well, it can, because Ryan Big did exactly that. He has mistaken to put alignment of hash keys, and he's at the back of a queue of CI. So that's cost somebody like Ryan Big a bit of time, just because he did not have an automated way of running Rubocop. So I did a quick poll on the Slack message group, and I said, well, how bad is Rubocop? Or how many fix-up commits there are, or what messages are you using? So here's a number of them. Obviously, there's some disagreements with Rubocop, like damn you, Rubocop, or let a Rubocop issue be, because with that issue fixed, readability gets worse. Interestingly, down the bottom right, somebody did a count on their code base, and they had probably around 949 Rubocop fix-up commits. That is somebody who's written some code, pushed it to CI, 20 minutes have passed, CI has told them failed because Rubocop did not pass. That's a lot of wasted time and potentially frustration, which could have been turned into learning. So why is Rubocop good? Well, it's consistent styling. It makes it faster to format. There's less arguments between developers as to how things should be formatted. Once you have consistent styling, you also have faster to read code. You can learn new techniques and enforce coding best practices. And you might be going, come on, Michael, what can you learn? New techniques? Like, who could learn a new technique from Rubocop? Well, how about Ryan Big again? Today, I learnt earlier this year, you can do a post.comments.ids rather than doing a pluck::id. How did he find that out? Well, he mentions it. Found out about this through Rubocop rule. So trust me, there are a lot of cool things you can learn by really kind of bringing up your speed in Rubocop. But I said this talk is about preventing fix-up commits. So what's a solution? One solution is pre-push hooks. So let's go back to our coding. We write code, we write the tests, we do a commit, we push. Where are we pushing? We're pushing to CI to continually integrate our code. But before we push, we can have a pre-push hook. This is just part of plain old Git, a pre-push hook. So what could we do? Well, we could just do a bundle exec Rubocop. But that for a large code base could take 3 minutes, even longer. So maybe we should just do a bundle exec on Rubocop on the files we've modified, which can take a lot less. And that's kind of a clever thing, but how do we know which files to run it on? Right, so let's have a think what we can do here. So first of all, we need to configure Git hooks. So you can cat your .git/config file. So all Git repositories have a .git folder, and inside that there's a config, and you can see there can be an optional core setting, which is hooks path, to tell you where to find Git hooks. You can set it using that long command there, git config core hooks path.git hooks, and you can write a pre-push hook. In this case, we'll kind of jump into a live demo in a second. So in this case, it's a quick bash script that actually calls out to a Rubocop checker. And what would a Rubocop checker do? Well, let's have a quick look. We would probably run it in Ruby because this is a Ruby meetup. So we would run user bin env Ruby. We would try and find all the Git commits that are have changed from your current branch to the branch you're pushing to, which should be something like origin/main. Now, this is kind of, there's a number of these different Git things you can do. This is one of them. It gives us just the names of any files you've modified on your current version compared to origin main. We can then split these. We can then filter out certain things we don't want, like let's say DB schema. There's no point running Rubocop on that. We probably don't want to run Rubocop on all the JS and JSX things. So we may want to filter things that are Ruby, Rake, JBuilder, and the like. We can then say, well, if there's no changes, then everything's good. But if there are changes, join them with a space, to, print out that we're fixing them, bundle exec Rubocop, and fail if that fails. Obviously, you can see my style of coding there is taking from my last talk about using various pipelines in Ruby. So demo, let's go. I have in here a code base, and I can do a time. Let's just run Rubocop across the whole code base. Let's have a look. It's a pretty small code base I put together with some friends for a Square hackathon. As you can see, it's taking a little bit of time. It has to go and read what files are available. And after 5.66 seconds, it has told us that everything's good. So let's imagine I now go and change the config routes file, and we're just going to put a couple of spaces. Like, this alignment is not perfect. We're expecting Rubocop to complain. So I save that file, but now I can I'll just run that file. And as we can see, our original took 5.6 seconds, but just doing that one file took 0.8 seconds. So it's a lot faster to run Rubocop just on one file. And obviously this is for a small project. As I said, I've been on projects where Rubocop has taken up to 10 minutes to run across the whole project, even with caching enabled, etc. So what we need to do is follow those steps I said. So let's have a look at what's in our git config. So this is just looking at the top few lines of git config. There's like a core thing. There's like the origin where this repo is at. And in here, we said there is spot for having a Git hooks directory. So we said, okay, we need to set that. So we can do that using, history, doing this, git config core hooks path git hooks. So if I run that and then do a head, we'll notice that this has now changed to that. I can unset that. And if I do a head, you'll see that it's disappeared from there. So we're saying, right, we can do this. So this is the first part of this. So we're saying, well, every developer would need to run this to make sure their hooks are configured. Remembering that command might be a little bit hard. So why don't we borrow something from C? Why don't we use a makefile, which is quick to run? And in here, I can put a dev env and create that command. So now there'll be a make dev env command. So if I save that makefile, and if I do a head, it will show us in the config, we do not have the git hooks. If I now do a make dev env, we will now see that that command has run, and we can head that and see that git hooks are there. So that's now easy. And you could obviously add lots of other things there to create a dev environment according to your likes. We now need to make a directory, git hooks, and we need to vi, or whatever we use. What am I doing? Vi prepush, right? So we need a prepush file. And in here, we just basically need to have the contents that I suggested. So let's just read a file I got ready earlier. So this is basically doing the same thing, finding the difference, etc. Let's have a look what the difference actually does before we run this. So I save that. I'll clear the screen. I'll run this no pager diff name only, and it shows us here the files that have changed, just those files. And this is from origin main. So now I can do a git push. What's going to happen? Well, Git knows that I have a pre-push hook, and it's going to try and run it. In this case, it tries to run it and tells me, hey, it was ignored because it has not been set to executable. This is running as a shell script. So for that, I need to chmod that to be executable. And now if I do a git push, it should complain at me and tell me that actually you can't push because there are Rubocop breakages. So I do a git push, takes a little bit longer. It's telling me it's picked up just the routes file, not the make file. It said, cool, that needs fixing. It said there are 2 offenses. Both of them are automatically correctable. Rubocop failed. Error, failed to push some refs to GitHub. Failure-driven square snippet demo. So at this point, I can do 2 things. I can do git, I can Rubocop, and it's capital A. I can fix that routes file. So that will fix that. I can then git add dot, which is then git commit -v. I can preview what I've changed. I've added this awesome little snippet in Prepush. I have also added this simple dev env script into my makefile. And in here, I can say added pre-push hook to check Rubocop. Save and git push. And at this point in time, it will tell me that everything is fine. So that would prevent me from ever doing a dodgy commit that does not work. So that was the demo. Let's see. What's the other solution? Well, you could set up your IDE. But actually, interestingly, to Julie's comment there about saying, well, you could set up VS Code to dive through to your modules. I've heard a lot of people say that. I haven't seen a lot of people do that. It's certainly worthwhile doing. Certainly, if your IDE on save applies Rubocop fixes or suggestions, it can be very powerful and a very powerful learning tool as well. So certainly do that. But this is not what this talks about. What is this talk about? What is the most important work you can do? The most important work I believe you as a developer can do is build tools that help other developers. So if you're writing features, you are ×1 improving a feature. But if you're writing code or producing code that helps the whole team, you are 10xing your work because your whole team gets the benefit of what you've done. So I believe that little tools like this can help improve overall team productivity. So you may say, well, okay, you showed us how to stop Rubocop fix-up commits like ever, but what else can you do? Well, you could do the same with schema RB, right? The same thing. I've often seen a lot of people push a change and the schema RB doesn't match what's in the migrations, and then somebody else whinges, why is this so? And then tests don't run against the right version, etc. You can stop that because you can, again, with a very similar script, pick up if there's a change and run the migrations against your test database to confirm that. You could help bootstrap a project. So often I've been on projects where there's just a number of things that have to be done and it just slows down developers. One that kind of came across recently and we used a fair bit when I was at Fresho was Foreman was not working for somebody on their M1 Mac. And in general, I don't like Foreman. I mean, it's kind of cool. It starts everything up, but usually starts it up in one window. Tmux is another alternative where you can actually have different windows spawn up all your different processes. And it was kind of a conversion for that developer. They said, oh my God, this is so much better than Foreman once they started using. Again, it's a tool that other developers can use. Another thing very similar to this is you could create a set of specs that you've modified and just run those. So rather than running a whole test suite before you push, you can have a quick script that say, show me what's changed, run the specs that have changed. So little kind of hints there of what you could do to do the most important work. So before I wrap up, that change has gone here, failure-driven square snippet demo. If I refresh that, you will see that we've committed, hopefully build passes. I don't know if there is a build, maybe there isn't. But interestingly, what you should do, if you can't find this code, you should go to GitHub, and by default, I believe everyone gets this view where they see the activity of everyone they follow. So I follow a cache. So before he gave his talk, I could see what he was going to do on his Stripe integration Roro September 2021 talk. And if you follow me, maybe you'll see how the code works that I just showed you. And do we have another slide? Yes, we do. I am Michael, ceramic, failure-driven. And on Wednesday, October the 13th, if you want to listen in, I will be talking with Jana Martins on the IT Career AU live stream about top tips on how to tackle a coding challenge. Thank you.
Yay. Awesome. That was great. Rubocop is good. Anyone has a question for Michael?
I had a little one in the chat. Just do you actually have to manually set the hooks directory? I thought that was just defaulted to .git/hooks.
It might be. Good point. Like, you know, there's only so much research I'm going to do.
I believe that is so that you don't need a symbolic link or put the script into the .git/info/hooks scripts there. You can use a folder that is checked in to house your scripts, and it'll pick them up automatically just from that one config setting.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So that's the difference. That yes, anything in Git hooks could be used, but won't be in your repository. Whereas by putting in another directory, it means that the script that you run will be version controlled.
Yep. We have a bootstrap script which sets up the Prepush hooks. Thanks to Mike Morris, I think.
Ooh.
I don't think it was me, but I'm sure. I think the guy that did it left. So yeah, I mean, it was me.
Someone in the chat asked, ST in the chat asked, is it safe to blindly accept any auto-correctable offenses?
Yes, as long as you check the build straight afterwards. So obviously it depends how good your test cases are, but yeah, you will certainly want to check what it's doing. I had one the other day that was that broke the build. And actually got me down this whole rabbit hole of looking into how gems work and what happens when you pass a nil key to a create in active record. So yes, you want to be checking what's happening, especially if you're not confident your tests will pick it up.
So Rubocop has two amend options. One is the lowercase a, which is like, I'm sure this won't break anything. And the other is the uppercase a, which is like, yeah, it's probably fine. So yeah, I don't know. I always use uppercase a. It usually works.